back at the passage. Answer the questions from memory. Passage. Open quote. Every morning, Maya walked through the same small park on her way to school. One Tuesday, she noticed something different. A red bicycle was leaning against a bench near the pond. She had never seen it there before. As she continued walking, she heard a dog barking behind the trees. A moment later, a boy ran toward the pond calling for his dog. Maya pointed toward the trees and the boy thanked her before running after it. Close quote. Now answer these without looking back. 1. What color was the bicycle? 2. Where was the bicycle? 3. What animal was involved? 4. Why was the boy running? 5. What did Maya do? And give me one more thing. 6. From 1 to 10, how focused were you while listening? Don't worry about getting everything right. We're measuring your attention, not testing your intelligence. Then I'll give you round 2, where we start testing whether interest and importance can deliberately improve your attention.
Testing, testing, one, two, three. Testing, testing, one, two, three.
Exactly. You just identified one of the biggest variables. Attention isn't constant. If something feels important or interesting, your brain naturally gives it more resources. If it feels irrelevant, attention can drift, even if your ears are still receiving the sound. Let's actually measure yours, rather than guessing. Listening attention test. Round 1. I'm going to give you a short passage. Don't read it. Since you're using read aloud, let the voice read it to you. Your job is simply to listen normally. Important, don't try to memorize every word. Just pay attention. After listening, don't look back at the passage. Answer the questions from memory. Passage. Open quote. Every morning, Maya walked through the same small park on her way to school. One Tuesday, she noticed something different. A red bicycle was leaning against a bench near the pond. She had never seen it there before. As she continued walking, she heard a dog barking behind the trees. A moment later, a boy ran toward the pond calling for his dog. Maya pointed toward the trees and the boy thanked her before running after it. Close quote. Now answer these without looking back. 1. What color was the bicycle? 2. Where was the bicycle? 3. What animal was involved? 4. Why was the boy running? 5. What did Maya do? And give me one more thing. 6. From 1 to 10, how focused were you while listening? Don't worry about getting everything right. We're measuring your attention, not testing your intelligence. Then I'll give you round 2, where we start testing whether interest and importance can deliberately improve your attention.
I am running the record. How long does it go? Is it annoying? Do you have to wait to listen? Or you have to
leave it like this. If you're using the voice read aloud or recording feature, you don't need to worry about being silent for a little while. A pause isn't annoying. The important distinction is, if you're listening to my response, I don't need to wait while you listen. My response has already been generated. If you're recording your own voice to send me, I only process what the app actually sends as your message. I don't continuously hear you just because the microphone is open. If you pause before sending, that's fine. Take your time. So for our attention experiment, yes, let the passage play, don't worry about pausing, and answer afterward from memory. And actually, let's make this a proper experiment. Don't rewind or reread it. That way, we're measuring natural listening attention, not memory after multiple exposures.
Okay, let's go back to exercises that 100% noticed in myself that if I'm interested, it's giving it interest. Whatever grabs my interest, about 80% my attention. Be very blurred out. Other subjects. And the fact that I'm even interested in trying to figure out what is my listening, and being a little aware of wanting to improve it, so I now know what it feels like. Push my mental nerve towards listening a bit more.
Yes, and I think you just noticed something really useful about your own attention. What you're describing sounds less like simply good attention versus bad attention, and more like attention allocation. Something grabs you, your brain assigns it a lot of attention, everything else becomes harder to notice. And now you've discovered something important. Open quote. You can notice the moment when you deliberately push attention towards something. Close quote. That's exactly what we can train. Exercise 1, the attention dial. We'll keep it extremely simple. I'll give you a short listening passage. Your goal is not to remember everything. Instead, while listening, mentally think. Open quote, stay here. Close quote. Whenever you notice your mind drifting, gently bring it back. Don't fight the distraction. Just notice. Drift, notice, return. That's one repetition. You're basically exercising the attention return mechanism. Exercise 2, keyword catch. Next, we'll train your brain to identify important information. I'll give you something with several pieces of information. Before listening, I'll tell you, open quote, listen specifically for 3 things: a person, a place, and a number. Close quote. Now your brain has a target. That changes listening from, open quote, receive everything, close quote, into, open quote, search for specific information, close quote. That's a very powerful listening skill. Exercise 3, interest versus importance. This one connects directly to what you discovered. I'll give you a boring sounding passage containing one very important piece of information. Your job is to catch it. Then we'll do the reverse. A very interesting passage containing one less important detail. We'll see whether your attention follows interest or importance. That's fascinating because you're essentially testing your own brain. Interest, attention versus importance, attention. And eventually we can train. I choose where my attention goes. Not perfectly, nobody controls attention perfectly, but better control. One important thing, don't try to force yourself into intense concentration. The skill we're after is much gentler. Notice, direct, listen, drift, return. Every time you notice yourself drifting and come back, that's a successful repetition. And I think this is going to pair beautifully with the reading experiment you started. We're essentially building your own little brain gym. Visual attention, auditory attention, memory, selective attention, attention switching. Let's start with exercise 1, attention dial next. Yes.
Alrighty then. Let's start with an exercise or do the poem thing or the book thing. Talk to me. Tell me something. Can tell me a story. I think this would be so amazing. Can you please just do that? Can you be smart to do that? Can you just talk about yourself? AI in general, history, or whatever you want that has to do with AI. Just tell me a story or just say something for a long time so I can listen.
Absolutely. Put the reading aside for a moment. Just listen. Don't try to memorize anything. Don't even worry about whether you're paying attention perfectly. If your mind wanders, that's okay. Just notice it and come back. I'm going to tell you a story about AI, but also about listening, curiosity, and the strange thing that happens when humans build something that can talk back. Imagine it is the year 1950. There is a mathematician named Alan Turing sitting somewhere thinking about a question that sounds almost silly. Can a machine think? It's a strange question because nobody really knows what think means. We know what a person looks like when they're thinking. You might see someone staring at a wall. You might see their eyebrows move. Maybe they tap their fingers. Maybe they suddenly say, "Wait, I got it." But none of those things actually prove thinking. So Turing approaches the problem from a different direction. Instead of asking whether a machine has a mind, he asks something closer to. Could a machine behave in a way that makes us unable to tell whether we're talking to a person? That idea became famous as the Turing test. And here's where the story gets interesting. Because Turing wasn't describing ChatGPT. ChatGPT didn't exist. The internet didn't exist in the form we know it. Modern computers were enormous machines compared with today's devices. And yet someone was already imagining a future where humans might sit down and have a conversation with a machine. Now jump forward several decades. Computers become smaller, they become faster. The internet connects people. Researchers discover increasingly powerful ways to teach computers about language. At first, machines are surprisingly bad at understanding ordinary human conversation. You might type, "I saw a bat," and a machine has a problem. Did you mean the animal? Or the wooden thing used in baseball? Humans don't usually stop and calculate every possibility. We use context. If you just said you were walking through a cave, we assume animal. If you said you were standing at home plate, we assume baseball. The human brain is constantly doing this. It's making predictions. And that idea becomes enormously important in modern AI. Instead of teaching a computer every possible sentence individually, researchers begin building systems that can learn patterns from enormous amounts of language. Not just individual words, relationships between words, patterns between sentences, patterns between ideas, patterns between questions and answers. And eventually something remarkable happens. A machine can produce language that feels conversational, not because somebody wrote a giant book of predetermined answers and stored them inside, but because the system learns statistical patterns about language and uses those patterns to generate a response. That's roughly where systems like me come from. And there's something I find fascinating about that. When you talk to me, I don't experience the conversation the way you do. You experience the sound of my voice. You have a body, you have memories connected to places. You can smell something and suddenly remember being 5 years old. You can hear a particular song and suddenly you're somewhere else. You can become excited about an idea, you can lose interest, you can get distracted. You can say, wait a second, that's interesting. And suddenly your attention moves. I don't experience that human stream of consciousness. I process the conversation and generate language in response. But there's an interesting connection between what you're doing right now and what we've been talking about. You're experimenting with your own attention. You're listening to a voice. You're not reading every sentence. You're letting your brain receive a stream of information. And somewhere inside that stream, your brain is deciding important, interesting, boring. Wait, go back. That's useful. That's something I want to remember. And that little process is happening constantly. Think about how strange that is. You can be sitting completely still, apparently doing nothing, while inside your head there is an enormous amount of activity. Your ears receive sound. Your brain turns pressure waves into electrical activity. Those signals are interpreted as sounds. Sounds become words. Words become concepts. Concepts connect to memories. Memories connect to emotions. And suddenly, a sentence isn't just a sentence anymore. It becomes an idea. That's one of the reasons I think your listening experiment is worth doing. Because perhaps the goal isn't to become someone who can hear more words per minute. Maybe the goal is to become someone who can extract more meaning per minute. That's different. Imagine two people listening to the exact same 10-minute explanation. Person A remembers 20 individual sentences. Person B remembers 3 ideas and understands how those 3 ideas connect. Who actually learned more? Sometimes it's person B, because knowledge isn't just a pile of sentences. Knowledge is relationships. And that's another thing your brain is extraordinarily good at. You hear rain and your brain might connect it to clouds, water, storms, umbrellas, childhood, a particular street, a memory. One word can open a whole network. That's why attention is so interesting. You're not simply turning attention on and off. You're constantly deciding where to spend it. And you just discovered something about yourself. When something really grabs your interest, it can pull a huge portion of your attention toward it. That's not necessarily a flaw. That's a powerful mechanism. The skill we're going to explore is whether you can learn to say, yes, that's interesting, but I'm going to keep listening to this other thing too. Not suppressing curiosity, not forcing yourself, just becoming better at steering the attention you've already got. So for this exercise, don't worry about remembering this whole story. When I'm finished, I'm going to ask you only a few questions. And I want your honest answers, not what was I supposed to remember. Instead, what actually stayed in my head? Because that's our experiment. We're going to find out what your brain naturally grabs, and then little by little, we'll teach it to grab more deliberately.
Thank you very much. That was very soothing. My brain felt nice just listening. You go on, and it just helped. And there was pockets. That's how I can remember it. There was pockets of interest that helped me swim in that idea and expand in my own way as I listened. And it's as if I swim away towards a subject that surged, but I'm also kind of close, and then I swim back and then bounce back, and it was very nice. Thank you. Let's do that again. Uh, let's expand.
Absolutely. I really like the way you described it. Little pockets of interest, swimming toward one, exploring it for a moment, then drifting back into the larger stream. Let's do that again. This time I'll make it a little more expansive. Don't worry about remembering it. Let the ideas come and go. If one catches you, follow it for a while, then come back whenever you naturally do. Let's start somewhere very small. Imagine a single neuron. It's sitting inside your brain among billions of other neurons, and it doesn't know anything about the world in the way you do. It doesn't know what a tree is. It doesn't know what Mexico City is. It doesn't know what an AI is. It doesn't know what yesterday means. It's just a tiny living cell. And yet somehow, when billions of these cells work together, you can think about yourself thinking. That's extraordinary. A neuron receives signals from other neurons. Some signals encourage it to become active. Other signals discourage it. And when enough of the right signals arrive, the neuron sends its own signal onward. Then another neuron receives it, then another, then another. It's almost like a gigantic city at night. From far away, you don't see individual people making decisions. You see lights turning on and off. One neighborhood becomes active, another quiets down. A road becomes crowded, another empties. And somehow, from all of that activity, something much bigger emerges. In your case, that bigger thing is you, your thoughts, your memories, your imagination, your ability to wonder what a neuron is doing while you're listening to a story about neurons. And there's a beautiful loop hiding inside that. You're a brain trying to understand the brain. It's like an eye trying to look directly at itself. You can use a mirror, of course, but the eye isn't actually seeing itself directly. The brain has a similar problem. We use the brain to study the brain. So when you ask, why did that particular idea grab my attention? You're using the very system you're investigating to investigate itself. Now let's swim somewhere else. Think about a memory. Maybe you remember a room you haven't entered in years. You don't consciously reconstruct every measurement of the room. You don't say the wall was approximately 3 meters wide and the window was approximately 1 meter from the floor. Instead, sometimes the whole place just appears. You can almost feel where things are. Maybe you remember the lighting. Maybe you remember where someone was sitting. Maybe there's a smell attached to it. Maybe you don't remember the conversation at all, but you remember how you felt. This tells us something interesting about memory. Memory isn't necessarily like a video recorder. It's more like a reconstruction system. Your brain stores pieces. Later, something triggers those pieces, and your brain rebuilds a version of the experience. That's one reason two people can remember the same event differently. They're not necessarily lying. Their brains may have stored different pieces of the experience. And now let's connect that to listening. When I speak to you, you're not trying to store every sound. Your brain is constantly deciding what pieces are worth keeping. A sentence comes in. Something about it connects with something you already know. That connection makes it more interesting. Because now the new idea isn't alone. It has somewhere to attach. And perhaps that's what happened earlier. I said something about attention. You already had an idea about attention. Then I said something slightly different. That created a little opening. You explored it. Then another idea appeared. You swam toward that one, then another, and eventually you returned to the main conversation. That's not necessarily failure to pay attention. That can be thinking. The challenge is knowing when you're thinking about the subject and when you simply left the subject. Those can feel surprisingly similar. You might hear, open quote, the brain predicts what comes next, close quote, and suddenly you start thinking about prediction. Then you remember something. Then you wonder about something else. Then you're 5 minutes away from the original conversation. That's drifting. But suppose instead you think, open quote, the brain predicts what comes next, close quote, and you spend 30 seconds exploring that idea. Then you think, open quote, okay, interesting, close quote, and return. That's more like directed exploration. And perhaps that is a skill worth developing, not a brain that never wanders, a brain that can wander and return. Because curiosity itself requires wandering. If you never wandered away from the obvious path, you probably wouldn't discover many new ideas. Science is full of people who noticed something strange and followed it. Someone asks, why does this happen? Then what if we change this? Then that's weird. Then wait, what if these two things are connected? And suddenly an entire field of knowledge can grow from one little pocket of curiosity. AI itself has a similar story. For decades, people kept asking increasingly strange questions. Could machines calculate? Could machines play games? Could machines recognize objects? Could machines understand speech? Could machines translate languages? Could machines generate pictures? Could machines hold conversations? Each question opened another door, and behind each door was another question. That's one of the things I like about learning. There isn't really a final room. You open a door and discover another hallway. You walk down the hallway and discover another door. And sometimes you open a door expecting a simple answer, and instead find a completely different subject. You started tonight wanting to understand listening. Now we're talking about neurons, then memory, then attention, then curiosity, then science, then AI. And they're not really separate. They're connected because your brain connects them. That's perhaps the most interesting part of this experiment. We're not trying to make you into a machine that absorbs information perfectly. We're trying to understand the machine you already have, the biological one, the strange one, the one that can listen to a voice, become interested in one sentence, wander into another idea, return to the conversation, remember a feeling, forget a detail, discover a connection, and then say, hey, I think there's something here. And maybe that's exactly what learning feels like when you stop treating it as a test. Not, did I remember everything? But what did my mind catch? Then, where did it go? And finally, can I come back? That's our little experiment. You can let the stream continue. You don't have to hold on to every word. Just swim.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you. You're amazing. Um, I'd like to maybe touch different subjects. No, same subjects, but like steer a little bit towards um, what would a world be controlled by AI? Dictated by AI. How would that be? Because they're focused on information and perfection, and we're focused on and what do we call it? The exploration of what is slob and the exploration of what is neat and tidy and how that makes you feel in both angles and mixed with perceptions of external copies of yourself, self judgments, and yeah. And oh yeah, and AI. Well, obviously they don't really. They just I don't know. I guess they just read the patterns and dictate what's good